Hello and welcome back to a new school year and your second year in the Academy of Blended Learning. We are super excited to be back with you guys today, and we're looking forward to another great year with you guys. My name is Megan Crowley-Sullivan. I'm the Curriculum and Professional Learning Developer, and this is my amazing coworker, Amy. We are excited to be back. Before we kind of begin and jump into stuff, let's have a chance to kind of dig into that chat and grab that Google form for attendance. We want to make sure everyone has a chance to sign in today. It is really important for documenting who's attending these workshops and making sure that everyone is receiving what they need. So as you guys open up that link and fill out that form, we'll put up on the screen our norms for participating in ideal workshops. If this is your first year with us, if you're a brand new teacher at this school, welcome. Hopefully we had a chance to meet you already at our Foundations for Blended Learning summer program for new teachers. But if not, we're excited for you to be here with us today as well. These in front of you right here are norms for participating in all ideal workshops, whether we're in person or whether we're online. We are always making sure that we all agree to these norms so that we're able to have the best success during these workshops. So as you can see here, we encourage everyone to come prepared with devices that are charged to stay focused and kind of avoid distractions. We know that we're very, very busy as teachers, so that we're all, and those distractions pop up, but do your best to stay as focused as you can. Our workshops are highly collaborative, so we encourage you to support each other by actively listening and remaining engaged, being respectful, and participating. We highly encourage you to participate because these workshops are better when your voice is part of it. So during different collaborative breakout rooms, make sure that you are participating and then do your best to keep the discussion as content focused as possible. We know it's easy to slip into other conversations. And finally, make sure that you have your participation booklet ready to go. All of our ideal workshops have participation booklet. These are awesome ways to make sure that you have all the links and resources that we share with you following our workshop. So we're going to drop in the chat right now that link for you to grab. Make sure you open that right away. We highly encourage all of our teachers to move that participation booklet into a specific ideal folder in your Google Drive. This helps you kind of keep all of that stuff organized. So grab that link for me. And then if you'd rather scan the QR code, feel free to do that as well. Now, as part of our virtual workshops, we encourage everyone to change their name on Zoom. And doing so allows for us to group you more intentionally, just like you would in your blended learning classroom, group you so that you are able to receive kind of targeted support today. So normally we have you change your name with your grade level in front or the content area you teach in front and your school code behind you. And today we're going to still do that, but we're going to shift it and change it up a little bit differently. So what we're going to have you do is click on that Manage Participants button, find the list of everyone here, find your name and hover over it, click on that, and find where it says Rename. And what we want you to do is we want you to change your name to have your grade in front and your name behind, but we also want you to include an N if you are a brand new teacher to this school. You may not be a brand new teacher you've maybe taught before, but if you're new to your school and new to blended learning, please put an N in front of your name. This will allow us to group you today and give you some additional targeted support. Awesome. I see everyone changing their names. Thank you so much for doing that. Now let's kind of keep going. This, as I said earlier, this is our second year with you guys. That means that we spent an entire year working last year together with you in the first year of Academy Blended Learning, and we ended last May with our Pause and Unpack number 2 workshop. This was the end of year workshop where we had a chance to really reflect on the entire year with you guys, reflect on your blended learning implementation so far, and also set some goals and celebrate all the effort and work that you put into the year. So we're starting this year with a chance to kind of return to blended learning. We're going to review some of those foundational key pieces, but dig into things a little bit more. We'll kind of have a chance to review station rotation, but really, really start looking at other models as well as thinking about how we set up our classrooms for success. But before we get into all of that, let's start with a fun workshop warm-up. Now, this workshop warm-up will be dependent on the time you have in the program coordinator, but as a program coordinator, it'll be really short. So let's pretend like we came back from the workshop warm-up, and as we came back, Here we go. I want you guys to think back to last summer when we met for those 2 days to talk about the foundations of blended learning. Or if you're new this year, hopefully you just attended those 2 days recently. But either way, during that time, we talked about how there are many different models of blended learning, right? Some of them lean more towards brick and mortar, some of them lean more towards online. As part of the Academy of Blended Learning, we specialize in those rotation models. And we spent last year really looking at the station rotation model and the whole group lab rotation model. And this year we're going to dig deeper into that station rotation model and have a chance to kind of learn about it a little bit more, but we're also going to learn a little bit about the flipped classroom model this year. So today we're going to be answering the question, how can we advance our knowledge of blended learning and start smart this year? We want to set ourselves up for success. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what does that mean, starting smart. We're also going to look at how you might incorporate routines and procedures into things like back to school activities, such as back to school stations. And we're also going to have a chance to think about how we're going to welcome our students. And we're going to give you a chance to also review the station rotation model or look at a more advanced way of running the station rotation model and the flipped classroom model. So if we're going to start with review, let's start off by reviewing the essentials of blended learning. You have seen this slide over and over again during the past year. It shows the 6 essential ideal pieces of blended learning classrooms that a very effective blended learning classrooms will employ. So regardless of what model you're using, these are the 6 things that you want to make sure are forefront in your classroom. So first off, we have data-informed planning and grouping. That's using data to better know your students, to better group your students, and to better adjust or change your instruction to meet your students' needs. We then have whole group instruction, which, as you know, is providing that upfront mini lesson that is directly addressing your objective and allowing for your students to have greater success during small group or independent time in your classroom. We then have a focus in blended learning on purposeful variance and modality. So that means giving your students a chance to access and practice the day's learning objective in a lot of different ways so that they're engaged and focused on really having a voice and choice in their classroom. After that, we have, a focus on blending that technology, whether it's adaptive software or another form of quality ed tech, but you're using good online resources to provide either a personalized student practice or an experience with a tech that supports their ongoing growth. We also have a huge focus in our blended learning classrooms on targeted teaching and learning. That means that we're leveraging these models and the technology that we have to make sure that we're providing as teacher differentiated and personalized support to students either in a small group or in a one-on-one setting. And finally, we have assessment. We use formative and summative assessment to gauge student understanding and their progress towards mastery during each and every lesson. We're using frequent assessment to help us be more intentional. These are the essential pieces of effective blended learning classrooms. And that's why we spent so much time this past year going over those different components. We looked closely at planning for blended learning so that each of these pieces were present. We also looked at promoting collaboration in our classroom because that's one of the most powerful forms of modality shifting. We also looked at data usage and assessment and how we take the assessment data and use it to inform the differentiation in our classroom for that targeted group time. We did a lot of things to really focus on these essential pieces last year. But despite having all that training last year, we know that these are not things you become experts in overnight. They take time, and you're probably not going to be an expert in them in just a single year either. It's going to take time. And being an effective blended learning teacher is not easy. Teaching in this way consistently can come with challenges, and it can be hard to do it effectively. It's actually interesting. There's some research into what are the most common blended learning challenges. And what it found was that there are 4 areas that teachers continue to struggle with when they're implementing blended learning. And these are fostering a positive learning environment, incorporating flexibility, stimulating interaction, and facilitating student learning process. Today, as we return to blended learning, we're going to be focusing on those top 2 things on this list. We're going to think about how, as we head back to this new school year, how do we foster a positive learning climate where our classroom culture is set up for success? And how do we incorporate and set ourselves up for flexibility this year with blended learning. So those are the two things we're focusing on today. We're then going to spend the rest of this school year focusing on those other two things, stimulating interaction and facilitating the student learning process. Because this year, our Academy of Blended Learning program is all about you guys, the teachers, and your instruction within the blended learning model. So as you can see here, as I said, we're starting today with Return to Blended Learning. We're then going to be looking at, probably this afternoon, mindset and how having a growth mindset, not just for our students, but also for ourselves, can drastically impact our classroom environment and really also support a blended learning classroom. We're then going to have a chance to dig into student engagement and the different ways that we can encourage engagement in our classroom through things like EDGE protocols and other tech-based activities. We'll then have a chance to break out of the teacher isolation that oftentimes our classrooms create. And we're going to learn how to lean on one another and develop a really strong collaborative faculty culture that supports one another in our ongoing growth with blended learning. We'll then pause right before Christmas with a pause and unpack everything we had worked on in the first semester before spending the second half of the year looking at content in blended learning. So we'll look at literacy and how we incorporate literacy not just in ELA classrooms, but in every subject area so that literacy thrives in our blended learning space. We'll look at then computational thinking and mathematical thinking and how that thrives in all of our content areas. And we'll end the year looking at how inquiry and storytelling can enhance science, social studies, and religion classrooms. And just like last year, culminate the year with a pause and unpack where we celebrate all the work and effort you put into the year and again look back on all that we've done. But before we get to a whole year of learning, we want to start smart this year. Let's set ourselves up for success with blended learning right away. And one of the ways we do that in a strong blended learning classroom is we spend the first few weeks teaching our students how they're going to learn. We teach them what they're going to need to do to be successful before we actually jump into content, before we start going through our textbook and our standards. We start by teaching the routines and procedures that they're going to need to be successful. Think of it as student onboarding. If you were to get a new job or join a new company or even a new school, as some of you did this year, you'd go through employee onboarding. You would be trained in the logistics of how to do your job before you were actually asked to do that job. It's the same thing with students. We spend the first 2 to 3 weeks in a blended learning classroom onboarding our students. We build community and classroom culture. We want that classroom to be a tight-knit family. We then set ourselves up for success and our students up for success by going over routines and procedures over and over again. We practice them and we teach them explicitly to our students. And we practice them many different times until our students are comfortable with them. We also start by determining student readiness. There is such thing as summer learning loss, right? So we spend the first few weeks reassessing our students, starting off the year doing a diagnostic assessment to see where students are. What did they forget from last year? What do they need solidified again from the standards last year? And where can we start so that they're going to be most successful? And finally, we create an optimal experience in those first few days where they're excited, they're happy, they're fun, so that we'll be able to enhance academics in the classroom the whole year. We intentionally start smart. We are extra strategic in how we organize those first few weeks so that we set ourselves up for success the rest of the year. We even go extra slow so that we can later go fast. So that's what we're going to be doing today in Stations. We're going to be reflecting on those different ways that we can start smart and the different ways that we can begin to continue to advance our blended learning knowledge. In the tech station today, we're going to give you a chance to review what you know about the station rotation model and take it to the next level. So if you're brand new, there'll be 2 videos you can watch in that station, and there's a choice. If you're a brand new teacher this year, or you're a teacher that still doesn't feel super comfortable with station rotation, you'll watch the first one. And if you have a more solid grasp of station rotation, there is what we call the Station Rotation 2.0 video, and that's kind of taking station rotation to the next level. At the teacher station, we'll be talking about the flipped model. Last year, we spent some time looking at the whole group lab style model of blended learning and the station rotation model. And we're going to look at the next model, the flipped model, as to what that might look like in different grade levels, as well as how it might benefit you in your classroom and how you might do that. So we'll give you a chance to kind of explore that. And finally, at the collaboration station, we're going to be looking at some different smart starts for blended learning classrooms. So there's an example of back to school stations, what that looks like, where you're building classroom community and also exploring exploring station rotation at the same time, as well as collaborative anchor charts that help you set up the routines and procedures in your classroom. So you'll have a chance to explore those things with your coworkers and then discuss them and think about how you're going to start SMART this year. Are there any questions before we jump into stations? No? All right, then. Today we're grouping you guys into the new teachers will be in one group, and then we'll have pre-K to third teachers in another group, and our fourth through eighth grade teachers in a third group. Everything you need, as always, is going to be found in your participation booklet, all the links, all the directions. So let's get started. Push teachers out, bring them back. How'd that go? Push teachers out, bring them back. How'd that go? Push teachers out, bring them back. Awesome. I know that was, we spent a lot of time. Any takeaways? Who wants to share out what did your group during the collaborative station find really useful as to how you might start SMART this school year? Awesome. Thank you for that. Any other answers? Great. Those are all great ideas. I'm excited to hear how that goes for you guys. Before we kind of wrap up today, I did want to remind you that we gave you guys a lot of resources last year on building community and that classroom culture. You can find in your participation booklet today. We've included those links from last summer. We included the different links for, how to take a good closer look at the technology use so that you're using really meaningful tech in your classroom. We also included that reflection document where you can reflect on what types of routines and procedures you might need in your classroom. And finally, we included a bunch of personalized pocket PDs where you can flip through and get a bunch of fun ideas for building and promoting classroom culture, either at the beginning of the year or in ongoing ways. So don't forget that those resources exist. We'll share them as well in the follow-up teacher resource guide, but we want to make sure you have them present here. And finally, so what's next steps for you? As we kind of said, start SMART this year. Spend the first few weeks getting to know your kids and helping them get to know how to learn in your classroom. Really build relationships, establish your culture in your classroom, and teach your students what they need to know, routines and procedures wise, to be successful. And then just start somewhat thinking about the flipped classroom. We're not asking you to do anything with it if you don't want to, but it is a powerful model that can be incorporated into your classroom. Station rotation is awesome, but you can also use flipped classroom sometime as well. So think about those intentionally. We'll drop in the chat right now the link that you'll need for office hours. We have a really awesome new set of workshops and sessions for you to explore this year. We highly encourage you to do that. And finally, as always, let's finish up with some feedback. We want to get your feedback today and know how we can make this workshop better in the future. We'll drop that link in the chat. And if you could finish that before you leave, we appreciate it. We'll stay on and talk to anyone who wants to chit chat with us because we'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. Thank you guys for the day.